The kiss lasted 5 seconds. 5 seconds that silenced the laughter around her, froze the man in front of her, and transformed a wild dare into something that couldn't be taken back. Nia Marissa felt it immediately. The sudden shift in the atmosphere, the way the air seemed to thicken as if the entire bar had inhaled and forgotten to breathe. Her lips had barely pressed against his before she registered the heat, the firmness, the absolute stillness of him. She pulled back quickly, already grinning, already preparing to spin around and claim her victory. But the man didn't react, didn't smile, didn't flinch. He simply stood there, impossibly composed, his body a wall of controlled power beneath the neon glow. His shoulders were broad beneath a perfectly fitted black shirt, his posture rigid in a way that spoke of discipline rather than tension. His presence commanded space. The crowd seemed to unconsciously part around him, as if they sensed something in him that warned against carelessness. Mia's grin faltered. For a heartbeat, she wondered if she'd just made a terrible mistake. "You good?" she asked, forcing brightness into her voice even as her pulse hammered. His eyes, dark, fathomless, sharp as obsidian, finally lowered to her face. They didn't wander. They didn't soften with amusement or flare with anger. They simply locked onto her with the focus of someone analyzing a problem that had just presented itself. Studying her, measuring her. "That was a dare," he said. His voice was low, precise, his accent adding unexpected weight to each syllable. It wasn't a question. "Hey, family, real quick, drop a comment where you're watching from so I can see where our community is tuning in from today. Your engagement is what keeps these stories coming. Also, if you haven't subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button. You'll want to be here for every moment of this journey, because what's coming next is going to leave you stunned." Nia swallowed, suddenly hyper-aware of how close he still stood. She nodded, trying to maintain her confidence. "Yeah, just a stupid game." The bar around them continued its chaotic rhythm. Bass thumped through the speakers. Someone shrieked with laughter at the pool table. Glass clinked against wood. But in the small space between them, everything felt suspended, charged. He shifted slightly, and Nia noticed his hand, strong, decorated with ink that disappeared beneath his sleeve, resting on the bar beside her. Not touching her, not caging her in, but close enough that she felt the heat radiating from him, close enough that she understood without words. She was exactly where he'd allowed her to be. His other hand remained loose at his side, deceptively relaxed. "You should be more careful who you touch," he said, his tone almost conversational. Almost. Nia lifted her chin, refusing to be intimidated even as something instinctive whispered that this man was different from anyone she'd ever challenged. "Maybe I wanted to touch you." Something flickered in his expression. Not quite a smile. Not quite approval. Interest. Raw and unmistakable. He studied her for 3 more seconds. She counted them, then stepped back with the same deliberate control he'd maintained throughout. The space between them opened up as if it had never been compressed. "Be careful," he said quietly. That was all. Nia didn't wait for elaboration. She turned on her heel and walked back to her friends with forced casualness, her heart racing, her skin still tingling from the brief contact. Behind her, she felt his gaze following her path across the room, burning into her back like a physical touch. Kim Un watched her go, watched the confident sway of her hips, the way her braids swung against her leather jacket, the tilt of her head as she rejoined her laughing friends, and he didn't look away. For the first time in years, something other than emptiness stirred in his chest. An hour earlier, the night had felt simple, harmless. The bar was crowded, pulsing with energy, the kind of place where the air stayed electric no matter how cold the streets outside had become. Music throbbed from speakers mounted in corners, and bodies packed every available space, dancing, drinking, forgetting. Neon signs cast everything in shades of pink and blue, washing over faces flushed with alcohol and abandon. Nia leaned back in the booth, her amber-toned skin glowing under the lights, her smile wide and genuine as she laughed at something Paulina had just said. Her glass, something fruity she'd stopped keeping track of 3 drinks ago, was nearly empty again. She hadn't planned on drinking this much, but it had been one of those weeks. the kind that demanded forgetting. To surviving corporate hell for another month, Imani announced, raising her glass dramatically. They all cheered, the sound lost in the noise around them. Paulina leaned closer, her eyes glinting with the particular kind of mischief that usually meant trouble. Okay. Truth or dare? Nia groaned, already shaking her head. Girl, no. Absolutely not. Dare. Imani cut in immediately, pointing at Nia. She always picks dare. Nia hesitated, caught between her natural boldness and the nagging sense that tonight, dares might be particularly dangerous. Then she shrugged, liquid courage making the decision easy.
Fine. Dare.
Paulina's smile spread slowly, predatory. She made a show of scanning the bar, her gaze moving over clusters of people before stopping. Lingering. Her smile widened. I dare you, she said, voice dropping into a theatrical whisper, to kiss the most intimidating man in this entire bar. Nia followed her friend's gaze, and her breath caught. Nia woke to sunlight stabbing through her curtains and immediate regret. Not the kiss itself. That memory sent heat pooling in her stomach, but the recklessness of it. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand, squinting at the screen. 3 messages from Paulina, all in caps. The last one simply read, Girl, check the video. Her heart sank. She opened the attachment with trembling fingers. The footage was shaky, shot from their booth, but clear enough. There she was, striding across the bar with swagger she barely remembered having, rising onto her toes, pressing her lips against his. The kiss itself was brief, but his reaction, or lack of it, made her breath catch. He stood perfectly still, those dark eyes tracking her as she retreated, his expression unreadable except for the intensity that radiated from the screen. Oh God, she whispered. At the agency, Paulina was waiting at her desk, practically vibrating with excitement. Okay, so I did some digging. Nia dropped her bag. Please don't tell me. Kim-eun, Paulina interrupted, shoving her phone forward. That's his name. And girl, he's connected. The screen showed a grainy photo of him outside what looked like an upscale restaurant, flanked by men in dark suits. Another image, him at some charity gala, standing slightly apart from the crowd, watching. The articles were vague, business interests, import operations, private investor, but the implications were clear in what they didn't say. Nia's stomach flipped. Connected how? Paulina raised her eyebrows meaningfully. Then Nia's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Asterisk Nia Marissa. This is Kim-eun. I would like to see you again. Asterisk. Her heart stopped. The message was formal, direct, oddly polite for someone who'd just tracked down her personal information. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. How did you find me? The response came within seconds. Asterisk I wanted to. Will you have dinner with me? No obligations. Asterisco. Paulina leaned over her shoulder and gasped. Is that him? Nia stared at the screen, logic warring with curiosity. Every sensible part of her screamed to decline, to block the number, to forget the whole thing. But there was something about the careful phrasing, no obligations, as if he understood she might be scared, that made her pause. Against every rational instinct, she typed. When? The reply came immediately. Asterisk tomorrow.
7.
I'll send the address. Asterisk. Paulina grabbed her arm. You're actually going? I think so, Nia said, surprised at herself. Girl, he could be dangerous. I know. Nia looked at the message again, at the careful phrasing, the respect embedded in his words. But I want to know why he texted. Why he's interested. Because you kissed him.
No.
Nia shook her head slowly. There's something else. The way he looked at me like I was a puzzle he needed to solve. She met Paulina's eyes. I have to know what this is. Paulina sighed.
Fine.
But I'm tracking your location. And you text me every 30 minutes, or I'm calling the police.
Deal.
That evening, Nia stood in front of her closet for an hour, finally settling on an amber dress that complemented her skin without trying too hard. She wasn't dressing to seduce. She was dressing to understand. Her phone buzzed with the address, an upscale neighborhood she rarely visited, and a final message. Asterisk thank you for saying yes. I'll be waiting. Asterisk. Imani came home as Nia was applying lipstick. So you're really doing this?
Yeah.
What if he's actually dangerous? Nia met her friend's eyes in the mirror. Then I'll find out. But Paulina was right, he's rich, connected, clearly has resources. If he wanted to hurt me, he wouldn't need to invite me to dinner first. That's actually logical. I'm terrified, Nia admitted. But I'm also curious. And I need to know if what I felt in that bar was real, or just alcohol and adrenaline. Imani hugged her. Text us. Stay in public. Trust your gut. I will. The restaurant was intimate, traditional, the kind of expensive that whispered rather than shouted. When Nia approached the private booth, Kim Moon stood immediately, offering a slight bow that seemed both formal and genuine. You came, he said, and she heard real surprise beneath his control. Don't sound so shocked, Nia replied, sliding into the seat across from him. The menu was entirely in Korean. Kim Moon noticed her hesitation and began explaining each dish with careful precision, his accent wrapping around the unfamiliar words. He ordered for them both, his Korean flowing smoothly to the server, then turned his full attention back to her. So, Nia said, leaning forward. What exactly do you do, Kim Moon? His expression didn't change. I manage interests that require discretion. That's incredibly vague. Yes. She laughed despite herself. Are you in the Mafia or something? The pause that followed was heavy. He measured her with those dark eyes, seeming to decide something. That word is not inaccurate. Instead of fear, Nia felt a thrill race down her spine. So, this is dangerous. Being near me can be, Kim Moon said quietly. But I would not allow harm to reach you. The certainty in his voice made her breath catch. When the food arrived, he watched her reactions intently as she tasted each dish, the way her eyes widened at the kimchi's heat, how she smiled at the perfectly seasoned bulgogi. They talked about everything and nothing. Her work in brand marketing, his careful deflections about family, the differences between their worlds. Why did you find me? Nia asked finally.
Hundreds of people were in that bar.
Why track me down? Kim Un set down his chopsticks, considering his words. Because when you kissed me, you weren't trying to impress anyone. You weren't calculating an angle. You were simply bold.
Honest.
It reminded me of something I'd forgotten. What? What it feels like to be seen as human instead of a position. The rawness of the admission stole her breath. Outside after the meal, Kim Un turned to face her under the restaurant's subtle lighting. May I kiss you? He asked first in Korean. Then English, as if giving her time to understand, to refuse. Nia's heart hammered. Yes. This kiss was nothing like the one at the bar. It was controlled, deliberate, full of restrained hunger that made her knees weak. His hand cupped her face with surprising gentleness for someone so clearly dangerous. Then the black SUVs pulled up. 3 vehicles, sleek and ominous, rolling to a stop at the curb. Men in dark suits emerged from the first one, their eyes scanning the street with professional efficiency. Kim Un's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Nia pulled back. What? My associates, he said quietly, his hand still warm against her cheek.
I'm sorry.
This is exactly what I was trying to warn you about. They stood in the shadow between streetlights, the SUVs idling nearby like patient predators. Nia's pulse hammered, but she forced herself to stay calm, to think clearly despite the adrenaline. Those are your people? She asked. Yes. Kim Moon's voice was steady, but she caught the tension in his shoulders. They're waiting for me. Why? He looked at her for a long moment. Because in my world, when someone changes their routine, people notice. When someone becomes distracted, it raises questions. Nia swallowed. And I'm the distraction. You can leave right now, Kim Moon said, taking a small step back, giving her space. I will not contact you again. No questions, no consequences. You walk away, and this ends here. She should have taken the offer. Every logical neuron in her brain screamed at her to run. But Nia found herself asking instead, what happens if I stay? His expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across those controlled features. My world has rules you don't know. People will notice you. Some will not be kind.
He paused.
I don't know if I'm worth that risk. The honesty in his admission made her chest tighten. But you want me to stay? Yes, he said simply. I haven't stopped thinking about you since you kissed me. And I would very much like to know you. One of the men from the SUV approached, speaking rapid Korean. Kim Un responded without looking away from Nia, his tone leaving no room for argument. The man retreated. How did you get my number? Nia asked. I had it found. He didn't apologize, didn't soften it. For your safety, I needed to know who you were. That's. She struggled for words. That's invasive. Yes.
No denial. No excuses.
Nia took a breath, steadying herself. If this continues, if I say yes to whatever this is, I need honesty. Complete honesty. No more surprises. If I ask you something, you answer. Deal? Kim Un's eyes held hers.
Deal.
Then I want the full truth, she said. Not here. Somewhere private. He nodded slowly. My home. Tomorrow evening. I'll send a car. I'll take a ride share. Nia interrupted firmly. Send me the address. Something like respect flickered in his expression. As you wish. He moved closer, and for a moment, she thought he might kiss her again. Instead, he simply said, lock your door tonight. Be aware of your surroundings. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to keep you safe, he corrected. His driver approached, and Kim Un stepped back reluctantly. Tomorrow, Nia Marissa. 7 o'clock. She watched the SUVs pull away, her heart still racing. Behind her, a familiar voice called out. Girl, you better call me right now. Paulina stood at the corner, eyes wide, phone already out. Nia laughed shakily. This is insane. That's one word for it, Paulina muttered. The other word is dangerous. As they walked toward the subway, Nia pulled out her phone. A new message waited, an address in an upscale part of the city, followed by a single line. Thank you for saying yes. Kim Un's penthouse occupied the top floor of a building Nia would never have been able to afford even a single night in. The elevator opened directly into his space. Minimalist, clean lines, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Korean art hung on the walls. Traditional landscapes, modern calligraphy, a few pieces that looked ancient and priceless. One wall held books in both English and Korean, organized with meticulous care. He greeted her at the entrance, barefoot, wearing dark slacks and a simple white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. It was the most casual she'd seen him, and somehow that made him seem more dangerous, like glimpsing the person beneath the armor. Thank you for coming, he said, gesturing toward the living area. Nia followed, taking in everything. This is beautiful. Tea, he offered. She nodded, watching as he moved to the kitchen with practiced efficiency. He prepared it with ceremonial care, heating the water to precise temperature, measuring the leaves, pouring with focused attention. When he brought the cups to the low table, he knelt across from her, his posture formal. You wanted the truth, he said. No preamble, no easing into it. So, I will give it to you. Nia wrapped her hands around the warm cup, steadying herself. I inherited my position from my father, Kim Un began, his voice even. I control territories, businesses, some legal, most not. I have enemies. I have obligations to people who built this organization before I was born.
He paused.
I have done things I cannot undo. Have you killed people? The question came out steadier than she felt. Yes. The single word hung between them.
No justification. No explanation.
Just truth. Nia should have stood up. Should have left. Instead, she asked, do you want to keep doing this? His eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw something crack in his composure. No, he admitted. But leaving isn't simple. There are obligations, expectations, consequences that extend beyond me. Then why tell me any of this? Her voice softened despite herself. Why risk bringing me into it? Kim Un set down his tea, his movements precise even now. Because when you kissed me, I remembered what it felt like to be seen as human, not as a position, not as a weapon or a resource. He leaned forward slightly. And I find I would rather be honest and lose you than lie and keep you. The rawness of the confession stole her breath. Nia stared at him, this dangerous, controlled man who just handed her every reason to run, and felt something shift in her chest. "If I stay," she said carefully, "if I choose to keep seeing you, I need a promise. Name it. No half-truths. No protecting me by keeping secrets. If I ask, you answer. Always." Kim Un didn't hesitate. Agreed. They sat in silence for a moment, the city glittering beyond the windows. Then Nia stood, and Kim Un immediately rose with her, tension returning to his shoulders, as if he expected her to leave. Instead, she stepped closer. "I'm not saying yes to everything," she said quietly. "I'm saying yes to right now, to learning more, to seeing if this, whatever this is real." "That's enough," he replied, voice rough. When they kissed this time, it was slower, deeper, tinged with the weight of truth exchanged. His hands were careful on her waist, hers resting against his chest where she could feel his heart beating just as fast as hers. "Stay for dinner," he murmured against her lips. "Let me cook for you." Nia pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "You cook?" "My grandmother insisted," he said, and there, finally, was the ghost of a smile. Over the following 3 weeks, Kim Un courted Nia with deliberate care. He texted each morning, simple messages in English, occasionally Korean phrases he'd translate when she asked. 별표 좋은 아침 별표, good morning. 별표 잘 먹었어요. 별표, did you eat well? The formality of his language slowly relaxed, revealing glimpses of dry humor beneath the control. He sent her playlists, Korean ballads, instrumental pieces, K-hip-hop that surprised her with its edge. In return, Nia shared her world, 90s R&B, neo-soul, the music that had shaped her. She laughed when he admitted he'd never danced casually, that every movement in his life had been trained, purposeful. "You're telling me you've never just moved because you felt like it?" she'd asked over video chat one evening.
No.
"That's tragic." His mouth had curved slightly. "Show me." So she did, right there in her apartment, dancing to Brandy while he watched from his penthouse across the city, something warm and almost wondering in his expression. Their third dinner was at a soul food restaurant in Nia's neighborhood. Kim Un arrived exactly on time, looking distinctly out of place in his tailored black coat among the colorful, loud warmth of the space. But he was respectful, careful, asking about dishes, listening when Nia explained the significance of the food, the history. "Your grandmother taught you to cook," Nia said as they ate. "Tell me about her." Kim Un's expression softened in a way she'd never seen. "She raised me when my father was occupied. She believed food was how you showed love when words failed you."
He paused.
"She would have liked you." "Would have." "She passed 3 years ago." Nia reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. He went still at the contact, staring at their joined fingers, as if trying to memorize the sight. Later, at his place, he cooked for her kimchi jjigae, perfectly seasoned, the recipe exactly as his grandmother had taught him. They ate at his kitchen counter, close enough that their shoulders brushed, talking about everything. He asked about her work, her friends, what made her laugh. She asked about Korea, about the language, about the parts of himself he'd buried beneath duty. "In my world," Kim Un said quietly, "attachment is seen as weakness. I was taught to prioritize obligation over desire, control over feeling." Nia turned to face him fully. "I don't want to be your weakness." He shifted, taking her hand properly, lacing their fingers together. "You're not," he said firmly. "You're my reason to imagine something different, something better." The words settled between them, heavy with meaning. "Teach me more Korean," Nia said, lightening the moment. So he did, patient and thorough.
사랑, 러브. 용기, 커리지. 집, home.
Each word careful on his tongue, then clumsy on hers, both of them laughing when she mangled the pronunciation. Again, he'd say, smiling, actually smiling, and she'd repeat it until she got it right. They were building something, Nia realized. Not just attraction or fascination, but foundation. Understanding. The kind of connection that required both of them to be brave. One evening, as they sat on his couch, Nia's head resting against his shoulder, she asked, "What happens when people in your world get attached? When they care about someone?" Kim Un's arm tightened around her almost imperceptibly. "They become vulnerable, exposed." It's used against them. Is that why you've never? Yes. He tilted his head to look at her. Until now. Nia's breath caught. Does that scare you? Terrifies me, he admitted. But this, feels worth the fear. She turned, pressing a soft kiss to his jaw. For what it's worth, I'm terrified too. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. Then we'll be terrified together. The text came on a Wednesday evening while Nia was reviewing campaign mock-ups. I need to see you tonight. Tomorrow I meet with the council. She called immediately. What council? Kim Eun's voice was tight with tension. The elders. The men who built this organization with my father. They're questioning my recent changes. Nia's stomach dropped. They know about me. They know I've been different. Absent from certain meetings. Delayed on decisions that should have been immediate. He paused. They'll ask why. And I can't lie to them, Nia. Even if I wanted to, they'd discover the truth. An hour later, he was at her apartment. Nia had been expecting him tense, controlled, armored. Instead, when she opened the door, she found him looking almost lost. Still composed, still careful, but with cracks showing through. She pulled him inside without a word, and he followed, his eyes taking in her space. The photos on the walls, the throw blankets, the warmth of it all, as if memorizing something he might lose. Talk to me, Nia said, guiding him to the couch. Kim Eun sat, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. They'll ask why I've been absent. Why certain operations have stalled. Why I'm different. He looked at her, vulnerability naked in his expression. If I don't tell them about you, they'll find out anyway. And they won't be kind about it. So, you're going to tell them. I'm going to claim you, he corrected quietly. In my world, that means something. It means you're under my direct protection. That you're not to be approached, threatened, or used. That anyone who harms you answers to me personally. The weight of what he was offering, the risk he was taking, settled over her like a physical thing. What if they don't accept it? Nia asked. Kim Eun's eyes hardened. They don't have to accept it. They have to obey it. I'm still their leader, even if they question my choices. But there will be consequences. Yes. Nia moved closer, taking his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. What are you really afraid of? His mask cracked completely. That I'm being selfish. That I'm putting you at risk for my own desires. That I'm not capable of protecting you from what's coming. Kim Eun, she said firmly. I'm here by choice. I've had weeks to walk away, and I haven't. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. So when you walk into that room tomorrow, you tell them exactly that. I'm not some weakness you're hiding. I'm a choice you're making. Understand? Something shifted in his expression, relief, gratitude, something deeper. He nodded once. That night, they lay together on her couch, fully clothed, just holding each other. Kim Eun's arms wrapped around her with surprising tenderness, his face buried in her hair, breathing her in as if she might disappear.
고마워, he whispered.
Thank you.
천만에요. Nia replied, her Korean still clumsy but sincere.
You're welcome. She felt him smile against her temple, and for a moment, the danger and complications faded. There was only this. Two people choosing each other despite the odds. When he left just after midnight, he kissed her at the doorway, slow, deep, full of promises neither of them spoke aloud. Tomorrow, he said. Tomorrow, she agreed. The meeting lasted 4 hours. Nia spent every minute of it at work, pretending to focus on brand guidelines while her phone sat face up on her desk, silent and accusing. Polina and Imani flanked her like bodyguards, occasionally shooting her concerned looks, but respecting her need for space. When the text finally came, it was brief. It's done. Nia's hands shook as she typed. And the reply took longer this time. There was resistance. Questions. Warnings about dishonor and weakness. But I was clear. You are under my protection. No one will touch you. She exhaled slowly, relief and fear mixing in equal measure.
Can I see you?
Already on my way to you. Kim Eun arrived at her apartment 30 minutes later, looking exhausted but somehow lighter. The tension that usually lived in his shoulders had eased fractionally. When Nia opened the door, He simply pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "Tell me," she murmured against his chest.
So he did.
They sat on her couch, her legs curled beneath her, his arm around her shoulders, and he recounted the meeting. The council, 7 older Korean men who'd built the organization alongside his father, had been skeptical from the start. When Kim Un announced his intentions to transition toward legitimate operations, to step back from active control of the illegal enterprises, the room had erupted. "They asked who was influencing me," Kim Un said quietly. "Who had made me weak." "What did you say?" His eyes met hers. "I said one word. Her. And then I told them your name." Nia's breath caught. "I told them you weren't making me weak. You were giving me a reason to build something that wouldn't destroy me." He paused. "And I made it clear, Nia Marissa is under my protection. Anyone who approaches you, threatens you, or uses your name answers to me directly." How did they react? Some were angry. Some were disappointed.
One of the elders told us to, someone my father trusted simply nodded and said, 사랑은 용기가 필요하다.
Which means, love requires courage. Kim Un's mouth curved slightly. He gave me his support. That swayed 2 others. The rest, they'll comply, because they have to. Over the following weeks, Nia watched Kim Un systematically restructure his life. He met with lawyers, accountants, business consultants. He began transitioning assets, establishing legitimate corporations, cutting ties with operations that couldn't be made legal. It was slow, complex work, undoing years of his father's legacy. She also met Min-jun, Kim Un's most trusted man. He arrived at a dinner at Kim Un's penthouse, polite but clearly skeptical. He was shorter than his boss, stocky and solid, with scars on his knuckles and watchful eyes. "So you're the reason," Min-jun said in accented English, studying Nia with unnerving directness. "I'm a person, not a reason," Nia replied evenly. Something flickered in Min-jun's expression. Respect, maybe. He glanced at Kim Un, who was plating food in the kitchen, then back to Nia.
그를 행복하게 만드는군요.
"He says you make me happy," Kim Un translated without looking up. Min-jun nodded once, then switched to English. "He's been different. Better. Less." He searched for the word. "Less cold." "I'll take that as approval," Nia said. "It is." But not everyone was welcoming. Nia noticed the stares when she attended a business dinner with Kim Un, an event celebrating the opening of his legitimate import company. Most people were polite, but she caught whispers, sidelong glances. A few Korean guests looked at her with barely concealed disapproval. The black woman who changed him. The outsider. The reason. It stung more than she'd expected. After the dinner, in Kim Un's car, she was quiet. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately. "Nothing."
Nia.
She sighed. Some people there, they weren't exactly subtle about their opinions. Kim Un's jaw tightened dangerously.
Who?
"It doesn't matter. It matters to me." His voice was steel. "Tell me who, and I'll handle it." "Kim Un, you can't threaten everyone who gives me a dirty look." "Watch me." "Despite everything," she laughed. "You're ridiculous." But he was serious. Over the next few days, she heard through the grapevine, Imani, who heard from Paulina, who'd overheard at some event, that Kim Un had made it known. Disrespect toward Nia was disrespect toward him. Period. Several business relationships quietly ended. A few people issued formal apologies. "You didn't have to do that," Nia said when she confronted him about it. "Yes," Kim Un replied simply. "I did." Slowly, grudgingly, his world adjusted. Min-jun became an unexpected ally, occasionally texting Nia in broken English to warn her when Kim Un was having a difficult day. Boss stress. Make him laugh. Some of the younger members of the organization were curious, respectful, even friendly. And Kim Un moved more of his things into her apartment. A few shirts in her closet. His coffee maker, better than hers, in her kitchen. Books on her shelves. Small signs of a life being rebuilt, piece by piece. The photos arrived on a Tuesday morning. Nia was at her desk reviewing mood boards when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. No message, just images. Her walking into work. Her at the coffee shop near her apartment. Her through her living room window. The final image was a simple text. You're making him weak. Step away, or we'll remove the distraction. Her hands shook so badly, she nearly dropped the phone. She called Kim Un immediately. He answered on the first ring. Nia? Someone sent me photos. Of me. At work, at home, everywhere. Her voice cracked. I'm coming. Don't leave the building. Stay where people can see you. His tone had gone arctic, deadly calm. Forward me those messages. Now. She did, fingers fumbling. Within 20 minutes, Kim Un arrived at her office with Min Jun and two others. He found her in a conference room where Paulina and Imani had taken her, both friends forming a protective barrier. Kim Un crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. You're safe, he murmured. I'm here. You're safe. But Nia saw it. The cold fury in his eyes when he stepped back, the way he held his phone to his ear and spoke rapid, harsh Korean. She'd never heard that tone from him before. Command that expected absolute obedience, threat woven into every syllable. He was making calls. Many calls. Minjun approached her while Kim Un was occupied. This is a rival faction, he explained quietly. They see bosses' changes as opportunity. Think he's distracted, vulnerable. Are they right? Nia asked, hating the tremor in her voice. Minjun's expression was grim. They're wrong. Distracted boss is more dangerous. Because now he has something to protect. Within hours, Kim Un had security stationed outside Nia's building, the agency, every place she regularly visited. He wanted her to stay at his penthouse, but Nia refused. I'm not running, she said firmly that evening in her apartment, surrounded by his men. I chose this. I chose you. I'm not going to hide because someone wants to scare me. Kim Un's control cracked. Nia, these people are dangerous. So are you, she interrupted. And I chose you anyway. I'm not leaving. I'm not retreating. I'm staying, and I'm trusting you to handle this. Something raw crossed his face. He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I'm afraid, he admitted, voice barely above a whisper, of failing you, of not being able to protect you, of proving I'm not capable of this. Nia cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest and present. That's enough. That's always been enough. That night, he held her on the couch, their bodies tangled together, his arms like steel around her. She felt him trembling, just slightly, but enough to know he was as scared as she was. The threat was neutralized within 3 days. Nia never learned the exact details. Kim Un kept that world separate as promised, but she saw the aftermath. His knuckles were bruised. Min Jun looked satisfied. And suddenly the photos stopped. The unknown number went silent. It's done, Kim Un said when he came to her apartment on the 3rd evening, looking exhausted. Done how? Nia asked carefully. Handled. He met her eyes. You won't be bothered again. I made certain of it. She didn't press. She simply pulled him into her bedroom, made him lie down, and curled against him. They slept like that, fully clothed, holding each other. The danger passed, but the memory of it still fresh. When Nia woke in the early morning light, she found Kim Un already awake, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite name. What? She murmured sleepily. You stayed, he said quietly. Even when it was dangerous. Even when you should have run. You stayed. Nia traced her fingers along his jaw. Where else would I go? His arms tightened around her, and Nia felt the shift, the final piece of his control surrendering. Not in passion or need, but in trust. Complete, absolute trust. 별표 사랑의 별표, he whispered against her forehead. She didn't know the words, but she felt their weight. What does that mean? Kim Un pulled back just enough to meet her eyes, his expression open in a way she'd never seen. It means I love you. Nia's breath caught. Kim Yoon. You don't have to say it back, he said quickly. I just needed you to know. After everything, I needed you to know. But Nia was smiling through sudden tears. You idiot. I love you too. He kissed her then, deep, honest, full of relief and promise. And for the first time since that night at the bar, everything felt exactly right. 6 months after that night at the bar, Nia and Kim Eun's life had settled into something that felt impossible and perfect all at once. He'd fully transitioned to legitimate business, import-export, real estate development, consulting for companies navigating Korean markets. The shadows of his past still lingered. They always would, but they no longer defined him. He'd met her family, enduring her mother's skeptical interrogation with patient grace, winning over her father by fixing their kitchen sink without being asked, charming her younger brother by teaching him basic Korean phrases. Her family had been wary at first. The age gap, he was 5 years older, the cultural difference, the vague business background, but they'd seen how he looked at her, how he listened when she spoke, how he showed up, consistently, without fail. He's different, her mother had admitted grudgingly after the third family dinner. But he loves you. That's clear. Nia had learned conversational Korean, enough to follow his phone calls and surprise him occasionally with phrases he hadn't taught her. She'd learned to make kimchi jjigae using his grandmother's recipe, the process meditative and connecting her to a woman she'd never met but felt she knew. Kim Eun had learned to dance, badly, enthusiastically, in her living room at midnight to 90s R&B. He'd learned her friends' coffee orders, remembered their birthdays, showed up to Imani's art show and Paulina's engagement party. He'd become part of her world, not by demanding space but by earning it. They split time between her apartment, warmer, lived in, full of life, and his penthouse, quiet, organized, perfect for mornings when he needed to think. It worked. Everything, impossibly, worked. One evening in early autumn, Kim Eun came home to her apartment carrying something small. Nia was on the couch, reviewing a client presentation, when he knelt in front of her, traditional, formal, his eyes nervous for the first time since she'd known him. "Nia Marissa," he said, voice steady despite the vulnerability in his expression. Her heart stopped. He continued in Korean first, formal, beautiful words she could only partly understand, then switched to English. "You saw me when I had forgotten how to be seen. You chose me when I gave you every reason to run. You are my peace, my transformation, my home." He opened the small box, revealing a ring, elegant, understated, with a single stone that caught the light. "Will you marry me?" Nia was already crying, already reaching for him. "You don't kneel to me," she said, voice thick with emotion. "We stand together." She pulled him up, and Kim Eun rose, searching her face with an intensity that took her breath away. "Purr na purr," she said in Korean, then English. "Yes. Always yes." His hands shook slightly as he slid the ring onto her finger. Then he kissed her, deep and honest, and full of every promise they'd built together over 6 months of choosing each other despite the odds.
별표 사랑의 별표. He murmured against her lips.
Purr, she replied, the Korean feeling natural now, part of her. They told their people in the following weeks. Paulina screamed so loudly on the phone that Imani came running, thinking something was wrong. Minjun clapped Kim Eun on the shoulder and said simply, "Purr jarasa purr, well done." Her family celebrated. His remaining organization members offered formal congratulations, and slowly, the two worlds that had seemed impossible to bridge began to truly merge. The wedding came 5 months later, a blend of cultures that honored both of them. Nia wore white with Ankara accents, the fabric bold and beautiful against her skin. Kim Eun wore traditional hanbok, deep navy and elegant, looking every inch the man who'd crossed worlds for love. The ceremony was bilingual, vows in both English and Korean, traditions from both cultures woven together. When the officiant pronounced them married, Kim Eun cupped Nia's face with both hands and kissed her like she was oxygen itself, and the room erupted in cheers. At the reception, Nia found herself surrounded by both families, her mother laughing with Kim Eun's aunt, her brother attempting Korean with Minjun, Paulina and Imani dancing with some of the younger Korean guests who'd become friends over the months. It was chaotic and beautiful and exactly right. "You did it," Imani whispered, hugging Nia tightly. "You kissed a stranger and found forever." Nia laughed, wiping tears. "Best dare I ever took." Across the room, Minjun was speaking to Kim Eun in rapid Korean.
니어 코트 프레그먼츠. 별표 가볍다 별표. 라이터. 별표 자유롭다 별표. 프리.
Kim Eun's eyes found hers across the celebration, and everything else faded. He crossed to her, taking her hand, pulling her onto the dance floor as a slow song began. You're different, Nia murmured as they swayed together. Lighter. I'm free, he replied simply, his forehead resting against hers. You freed me. We freed each other, she corrected. He smiled, that full, genuine smile she'd worked months to coax out of him, and pulled her closer. Later, when the celebration wound down and they stood on the venue's balcony overlooking the city, Nia leaned into her husband's warmth and asked the question she'd been holding. Do you ever regret it? Giving up all that power? Kim Eun was quiet for a moment, his arms secure around her waist. Then he turned her to face him, his dark eyes soft in the moonlight. I gave up nothing, he said firmly. I gained everything. And it was true. The kiss that had lasted 5 seconds had changed the trajectory of 2 lives. Nia had learned that courage wasn't just the bold first step. It was staying when things got complicated, choosing love even when it demanded everything. Kim Eun had learned that strength included the capacity to surrender, to be vulnerable, to let someone change you completely. Together, they'd proved that love didn't pull you into darkness or demand you abandon yourself. When it was real, when it was brave, when it was built on honesty, love led you home. 1 year after their wedding, Nia and Kim Eun hosted a celebration at their home, the penthouse they'd kept but transformed completely. Korean pottery sat alongside art from Black artists. Photos from their travels covered one wall. Them in Seoul, visiting his grandmother's grave. Them at a family reunion in Atlanta, Kim Eun attempting to play spades and losing spectacularly. Them simply existing together, happy and whole. The space pulsed with life, music, a playlist they'd built together, K-R&B blending with neo-soul, and the laughter of people from both their worlds, comfortable now, integrated. Polina found Nia in the kitchen, refilling drinks. I still can't believe you actually kissed him that night. Nia laughed, glancing across the room where Kim Eun stood with Minjun and her brother, all 3 of them gesturing animatedly about something. Sometimes I can't either. Any regrets? Nia watched her husband throw his head back laughing, actually laughing, loud and unrestrained, at something her brother said, and her heart felt impossibly full. Not a single one, she said softly. Later, after everyone left, they stood together on the balcony overlooking the city that had witnessed their transformation. Kim Eun's arms wrapped around Nia from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder, both of them peaceful in the quiet. Do you remember what you said to me? Nia asked. That first night at the bar? Be careful, Kim Eun recalled, his voice amused. You were right, she said, turning in his arms to face him. I should have been more careful. His eyebrows rose. Oh, she smiled, standing on her toes to kiss him softly. I should have been more careful, because now I'm completely, hopelessly in love with you, and there's no going back. Kim Eun's expression softened, all the sharp edges worn smooth by love and time. 별표 그게 계획이었어, 별표. He murmured. That was the plan. You planned this? Nia asked, laughing. No, he admitted, pulling her impossibly closer. But I'm grateful every day that you were brave enough to kiss a stranger, that you stayed when you should have run, that you chose me when I didn't deserve it. You did deserve it, Nia said firmly. You always did. You just had to believe it. They stood there as the city breathed below them, 2 people who'd found each other in the chaos, who'd built something beautiful from a reckless moment, who'd proved that love, real, honest, brave love, could bridge any divide. The kiss had lasted 5 seconds, but the love it sparked would last forever. And somewhere in the universe, fate smiled, knowing that sometimes the best stories begin with someone shouting stop, and someone else not listening. If Nia and Kim Eun's journey from a reckless dare to forever captured your heart, you're going to love what comes next. Please subscribe to our channel for more intoxicating dark romance stories where forbidden love defies danger, passion ignites in the shadows, and courageous hearts find home in the most unexpected places. Thank you for watching, and may your own love story be just as brave and beautiful.